Night, 4 employees were scheduled to work the closing shift. None of them would make it home. Burger Chef was a regional fast food chain, popular in the Midwest before the rise of national giants. Its Speedway location stood on West 16th Street, a modest building with large windows, bright interior lighting, and a parking lot that emptied quickly after closing. For local teenagers, it was more than a restaurant. It was a place of first jobs, after-school shifts, and late-night closings that felt like a step toward adulthood. On that Friday night, 4 employees were scheduled to work the closing shift. None of them would make it home.
The youngest was 15-year-old Daniel Davis. He was quiet, dependable, and new to the job. He had plans for the weekend, plans that felt ordinary in the way only teenage plans can, small, personal, and unquestioned. 17-year-old Mark Ritz was the assistant manager on duty, trusted with responsibility beyond his years. He was known for his calm demeanor and his seriousness at work, a teenager already learning how to lead. Alongside him were 16-year-old Ruth Shelton and 16-year-old Jane Smith. Ruth was a cheerleader, outgoing and warm, someone whose presence filled a room without effort. Jane was reserved, thoughtful, and close to her family. Together, the 4 formed a familiar scene repeated in countless towns across America. Teenagers cleaning counters, counting registers, waiting for the clock to reach closing time. The restaurant closed at midnight. Sometime shortly after, something went terribly wrong. When the morning manager arrived at Burger Chef the next day, the first sign that something was amiss was subtle but unmistakable. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the restaurant appeared largely undisturbed. There were no signs of a struggle, no overturned chairs or shattered glass, but the cash registers were open and empty. Approximately $581 was missing. In the back, coats and personal belongings belonging to the 4 teenagers were still there. Cars remained in the parking lot. The absence of the employees, combined with the eerie normalcy of the space, suggested not chaos, but compliance. Police were called, and the case immediately took on an unsettling shape. It appeared that whoever had taken the money had also taken the employees with them. The question was how and why 4 young people would leave a well-lit restaurant late at night without resistance, without triggering alarms, and without leaving any trace behind.
Investigators theorized that the perpetrator or perpetrators had forced the teenagers into one of the victims' cars. The idea carried a chilling logic. A threat, perhaps a weapon, could have compelled obedience. The absence of disorder suggested control, not panic. Yet no witnesses reported seeing anything unusual. No one recalled screams, raised voices, or hurried movements. Speedway slept through the crime entirely unaware. For 2 days, the case remained a disappearance. Families waited, hoping for a ransom call, a sighting, any indication that their children were still alive. But on November 19, the search ended in the woods of Johnson County, about 20 miles south of Speedway. Hunters discovered the bodies of the 4 teenagers in a secluded, wooded area known as the Morgan-Monroe State Forest. They had been executed. Each victim had been shot at close range. Some showed signs of restraint. Others bore injuries suggesting they had been beaten before death. The manner of the killings was methodical, deliberate, and deeply personal in its brutality. This was not a robbery gone wrong in a moment of panic. It was an act that took time. The discovery transformed the investigation instantly. What had begun as a suspected armed robbery escalated into a quadruple homicide. The brutality of the crime contrasted sharply with the ordinariness of the victims' lives. These were not people living on the margins. They were teenagers working a fast food shift on a Friday night. The randomness of it unsettled the community, and the calculated nature of the murders unsettled law enforcement.
One of the most disturbing elements of the case lay in what did not happen. No surveillance footage existed. No usable fingerprints were recovered. The murder weapon was never found. Ballistic analysis confirmed that the same gun had been used on all 4 victims, but it led nowhere. Tire tracks at the crime scene were too generic to identify a specific vehicle. The forest, remote and dark, had offered the killer or killers exactly what they needed: time and isolation. As the investigation unfolded, questions multiplied. Why take the employees instead of fleeing with the money? Why drive them so far from the restaurant? Why kill them all when eliminating witnesses at the scene would have been easier and faster? Each question pointed away from a simple motive and towards something more complex, possibly more personal. Rumors began to circulate almost immediately. Some suggested the crime was an inside job, that someone with knowledge of the restaurant's closing procedures had orchestrated the abduction. Others speculated about drug connections, organized crime, or a planned execution disguised as a robbery. None of these theories found solid footing, but they persisted, fueled by the lack of answers and the growing frustration surrounding the case. Police interviewed hundreds of people. Tips poured in from across Indiana and beyond. Several suspects emerged over the years, including individuals with violent criminal histories and alleged confessions. One man claimed responsibility, offering details that initially seemed compelling. But under scrutiny, his story fell apart. Facts didn't align, timelines conflicted. He was eventually dismissed as unreliable. Another suspect, a local man with connections to the area and a troubling background, drew significant attention. There were allegations of his involvement, whispers of knowledge he should not have had. But evidence remained circumstantial. Witnesses recanted. Physical proof never materialized. Each potential breakthrough dissolved under examination, leaving investigators back where they started.
The families of the victims endured a unique kind of suffering, the agony of knowing how their children died without ever knowing why. Over time, relationships between law enforcement agencies grew strained. Jurisdictional issues complicated cooperation. Evidence was mishandled. Some materials were lost. Others were never properly cataloged. The case, once a priority, began to cool. As years turned into decades, the Burger Chef murders became a symbol of unresolved violence, a reminder that even the most ordinary places can become sites of extraordinary tragedy. For those who lived in Speedway at the time, the memory never fully faded. The restaurant was eventually demolished, but its absence did not erase what happened there. The space carried a weight, invisible but persistent. In retrospect, the crime resists easy interpretation. The controlled abduction suggests planning. The execution-style killings suggest intent beyond theft. Yet no clear personal motive has ever been established. The victims had no known enemies. There were no threats, no warning signs, no behaviors that placed them in danger. The randomness is what lingers most. Today, the case remains officially unsolved. Advances in forensic science have reopened discussions, but without preserved evidence, progress is limited. The files sit thick with reports, interviews, and unanswered questions. 4 teenagers went to work one night and never came back. Someone, somewhere, knows exactly what happened in the hours between the closing of a fast food restaurant and the silence of a forest clearing. The Burger Chef murders are not remembered for dramatic twists or definitive suspects. They are remembered for absence, for the missing answers, the lost opportunities, and the enduring sense that something vital was never uncovered. And as long as that remains true, the case continues to haunt the edges of American true crime history, waiting for a truth that may never fully come to light.